Welcome to A Closer Look. I'm your host, Linda Fontaine. Today, we have the privilege of having Chuck Slemp with us today. He is the Commonwealth Attorney of Wise County and the City of Norton.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, thank you for coming.
Thrilled to be here.
Good. And he's going to have the task of doing a lot of talking today, so I don't.
My wife says I don't have a problem with that, so I'll do the best I can.
Well, that's why we sought you out today. Who can do a good interview and talk a lot so Linda's cold doesn't hack all over the TV? Just kidding. So tell me, the crime of the 21st century.
Indeed.
Tell me what it is.
Well, as Commonwealth's Attorney, my primary role is working with law enforcement and citizens to prosecute crime. You might imagine the crime of the 21st century to be some sort of electronic crime, as you might imagine.
Sure.
Identity theft or computer crimes. And I'm not saying that those aren't important crimes, and those are crimes that we prosecute.
But those are ones we hear about all the time.
Exactly. What we want to talk about today, or what I'd like to chat with you about and make sure the viewers know, is that there's under the surface another crime that is extremely prevalent. It's something that goes on in our communities, and it's something that will eventually affect each and every one of us, and that's the crime of elder abuse.
Elder abuse.
Elder abuse. Now, senior citizens are our greatest generation. They are an increasing base of our population. In our region, we have an aging population. We have an increased number of individuals who are retirement age. When I say elder abuse, it's just the term that's used. By no means am I trying to say someone is aged or elder or senior, but there's a demographic of individuals that are over the age of 60 who are incredibly susceptible to crime, to being ripped off by either family members or through scams. And we are seeing, not just in Wise County, the City of Norton, in Southwest Virginia, but all across our country, an increased number of crimes against seniors. This is the biggest epidemic that nobody knows about, the biggest epidemic that nobody talks about. You hear all the time discussion about child abuse, and we prosecute child abuse cases vigorously. But at the same time, no one talks about the crime of elder abuse, and it's just as prevalent.
Is it getting worse, or is it just now being discussed?
Well, I don't know if it's getting worse per se. It probably has always been with us, but what makes this unique is it's the crime of the 21st century. People use the tools and technology of the 21st century to make trusting seniors the target of these despicable crimes.
Okay, so we're not just talking about physical abuse.
Right.
We're talking about taking advantage of people like my mom and dad on the phone.
Right, right. Well, and when we use the term elder abuse, we generally mean three different things. We mean either physical abuse or sexual abuse, neglect, or the third aspect, and that's financial exploitation. Financial exploitation is huge. It's estimated that in America, that 5 million elders are abused every year, and that financial loss can be anywhere between $2.9 billion to $36.5 billion. But we're not quite sure because most of these particular crimes are underreported. They're either never reported to law enforcement. Only 1 in 24 cases ever get to the door of an officer. And of those cases, they're very rarely prosecuted. The chief reason for that is that 90% of the perpetrators are family members. So what we're talking about is someone who cannot take care of their own affairs, someone who is aged in life. They have saved their entire life for retirement. They've saved and paid their debt to society. They paid their way through. They've built this great country. And then in their later years, instead of being able to enjoy their retirement, they're either suffering from some sort of dementia or diminished capacity, and that makes them targets. Now, I say this is something that's going to affect all of us. If we're lucky, we'll all reach that age one day that we've saved enough to be able to retire. And as we are getting to that point, unfortunately, sometimes health takes a downward turn as well, and so we're increasingly dependent upon not only our adult children at that point, but we're dependent upon others caregivers. And we see a lot of times caregivers or adult children as perpetrators of crime. We see it all the time in Wise County. I know it happens all across our country. And so what we want to do, you know, I talk about the role of Commonwealth Attorney. It's, yeah, I'm a prosecutor of crime, so whatever the officers the arrests they make, the cases that come before us, we go to court, we seek justice for victims. But I don't see my role as being a prosecutor defined to just the four walls of the courthouse. I think that as a Commonwealth Attorney, I need to be more active in the community in preventing crime and trying to make sure and raise awareness to those who may not know of something going on down the street. Too often times we think of, yeah, whatever happens down here is your business. I'm going to stay in my lane here. But unfortunately, that just creates more crime throughout our community. So we've done various initiatives to get outside the four walls of the courthouse, raise awareness, and make a difference in our community. Whether it's drug use or educating young people about the dangers of getting involved in things like criminal gangs, but also working with our legislators to strengthen our laws to make crimes against seniors more, to give us more teeth, to be able to not only investigate these cases better, to let those cases, the 1 in 24, to help the other 23 actually get to the door, and to give us tools to be able to prosecute when that happens. So we're working through those things.
I hear a lot about nursing homes, and that's what I think is the #1 fear people have about putting their loved one in a nursing home, because we hear these horror stories. How do you prevent that? I mean, people that do these crimes can be pretty sneaky.
Well, and there's, like anything, there's good and bad everywhere. I know some very, very talented, hardworking people that care very deeply about seniors and their patients who work at nursing homes.
Oh, sure.
Nursing homes provide an essential service. That being said, just like in nursing homes and other places, there are individuals who have their own agenda. We see oftentimes a family member or a caregiver, personal care aide, who may be suffering from some sort of addiction issue. And they steal medication from their elderly parent.
And that's something I was going to bring up. I bet a lot of the opioid crisis and drugs are part of this problem.
Well, it is, because what you find, especially in our area, is you've got a growing population that are over age of 65 and suffer from health issues. They have oftentimes powerful pain medication. And they're dependent upon, because they don't want to go into a nursing facility, they're dependent upon their adult children who are available. And those who are available are those who don't have jobs. Those who don't have jobs most oftentimes have some sort of a substance abuse addiction issue or criminal issue.
Something keeping them from getting a job.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's why I say there's 90% of the segment of the population that commit these crimes are relatives, family members, adult children, and that is just...
A lot of this then goes back to the drug problem in our... So prevention is like the ripple effect.
Exactly.
It's caused by many different things.
And that's why, you know, in our office, we prosecute aggressively drug crimes. In particular, those who are bringing drugs into our community, who are selling these dangerous drugs, poisoning our community, selling them to kids, creating the addiction issue that's worse, going after the true source of the problem, pill mills, for instance. That being said, there's a difference in our approach to those who are just addicted, who may have caught a criminal charge because they were possessing a drug. I tend to say if we get those individuals early, before they have fallen too far down the criminal justice system, we try to get them into drug court. We try to get them into alternative sentencing programs. We just created a work program, which I'm very excited about, and Wise, that defers jail costs and it defers an individual actually going to jail. We're talking about nonviolent offenders, people who don't have a huge criminal record. Instead of them sitting in Duffield Jail, eating Twinkies, costing the taxpayers $30 a day, they are sentenced to work. And they work in our communities.
What a concept.
They gain job skills. They mow the lawn at the elementary school. They help paint. They wash the school buses, whatever it might be. Not only are they making connections, they're increasing their job skills, they're avoiding jail, they're not strengthening the criminal bond, and hopefully along the way they get clean and get away from the drug element so that they don't wind up being the one who's desperate to commit a crime against their own parent to sustain their own drug crime. Now, it's working. I love it because very recently I went from trying to put this guy in prison to being a job reference for him when he finished our program. So he's a success story. There are others out there that we're working very hard to try to correct that problem, the substance abuse problem, because it spills over into everything. We aggressively prosecute in court, and we aggressively work outside the courtroom to try to think outside the box and create solutions to our problems.
And on that note, we're going to take a break.
Okay.
That sounds fabulous. That's a great idea. And that's the kind of things that we need, those programs to help. Okay,
Indeed.
very good. We'll be back in just a minute with more with Chuck Slim.